Okay. Um, Understand that there's a difference between an error and a mistake. Okay. So um, I think before we get into this, an important note is mentioned in page 17. Hopefully, you read it in your textbook about time under the heading maintaining a comfortable learning environment. Time is essential. Okay. So when you're going out to correct a student, know that time is important. So give a student time to uh, notice their own errors. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Correction. Not notice their own errors because they won't be able to notice their own errors, but notice their mistake and then correct their mistake. That's a much that's a better learning transaction when learners are able to correct their own mistakes. And time is a key factor in that. Time is a key factor in that. Okay. So a lot of times when we have class, we rush too much. We speeding through everything. Slow down a bit. Slow down a bit. Okay. Um, don't rush because time is our friend as teachers. We get comfortable. We get really uncomfortable when there's dead air. No one's saying anything. Dead air sometimes, a lot of times, is um, an important phenomenon that happens. All right, and that phenomenon can be encouraged by the teacher by creating that dead air. Okay, so slow down a bit. Don't be afraid of dead air. All right, it's okay if the class is or there's a pause in thought. Slow down. We don't have to go 100 miles an hour. Slow the pace down. Okay, it's key. It's going to be key for learners to have time to notice their mistakes. Now, what is an error? Is an error a sign that students didn't learn? Is an error a sign that learning is taking place? So, which one is it? Was error a sign that the learners didn't learn anything, or is error a sign that learning is taking place? What do you think?
A sign that learning is taking place.
Why do you say that?
Because if there is no learning, there is no error.
Right. So we the famous thing, we learn from our mistakes. We learn from the errors that we make. It's key, right? So you have to have an environment where it's okay, and we mentioned this yesterday. It's okay to make mistakes. It's perfectly fine. In fact, the place that we need to make mistakes is in the classroom because this is the place that we practice. All right. So this is not a competition. One of the big things, and I stopped doing this because I realized, and somebody pointed it out to me, and I realized that they were right. A lot of times when we want to have fun or we want to make the class interesting, we make a competition. All right, girls against the boys, or this group against that group, and we'll see how many fast. Don't do that. Or I'm not gonna say don't do that, right? But don't do it all the time. Don't make it the culture of your class where everything's a competition, because then you then encourage what we talked about yesterday, cheating. Teaching and learning transactions are not about competition. Remember, you're not teaching a class, you're teaching individuals, right? And some individuals do not enjoy competition when they're trying to learn. They don't want to be in a competitive scenario. Don't create that competitive scenario, because although it may seem like they're having fun, it may seem interesting to you, it may create anxiety. And more importantly, when you have a competition, most competition has to do with timing and speed, right? We want to, as educators, we want to slow things down, not speed things up. We want to give people enough time to notice their errors. We want to be well to not notice errors. Let's say to correct their mistakes, because again, they won't be able to notice their errors, because that's the difference between an error and a mistake. Okay, the difference between an error and a mistake is that when you make an error, you don't know that you made an error, so you can't correct yourself. You just don't know. When you make a mistake is a mistake, meaning you know you can correct yourself if you see it. Like if when you go to write, you guys write a paper in college or high school, right? And then you go back and proofread, right? And then when you proofread, you say, "Oh man, this is wrong, and I'm supposed to capitalize this, and I was supposed to put a comma here, and I was supposed to to spell wrong." You can do that by yourself, but you're the one that made the mistake, but you can also correct the mistake because you know once you do a review, once you proofread, oh, I made this mistake. I know better. I just happened to make the mistake. Maybe I'm moving too fast. Maybe I wasn't thinking, but maybe I was focused on something else, right? An error, you would not be able to correct it because you don't know that it's an error, right? You don't know that it's wrong. And that's the difference. And that's when the teacher comes in. So the teacher has to set the pacing of the classroom where students can correct their own mistakes, and also where the teacher can also support an error when there's an error. So you got to find that balance, and it's the timing. It's timing, and sometimes we lose track of that when we do things like competition, and because we're trying to make it too interesting. All right. Don't lose, and I'm not saying that don't try to make classes interesting. Make them interesting, trying to make them fun, but don't lose track of the main purpose. The main purpose is those enabling objectives that you wrote. Okay. In order to accomplish those enabling objectives, you probably have to slow down a bit. All right. One of the things that you might want to think about is having a slow walk run phase, where in a certain phase of your lesson, it's you intentionally are moving slowly. Right? You model, right? What's the first is warmer, and then context and modeling, right? So when you're modeling, you are moving slow pace. This is another reason why we need to learn a profile, because those students who already know, they need to do something else, because that modeling phase may be just too slow for them, maybe just too. So if you already know they know basics about the topic, you can give them something else to do, while the learners who don't know can benefit from that slow pace instruction, that model, the context and modeling. Something to think about. I'm not saying it's easy to do, because now you got two classes going on in one class, but that will benefit the students who already know a lot about the topic. Because if you don't get them to do something else, then they get bored. Their amygdala goes crazy. Why am I doing this? I already know this. Yada yada yada. RES, and then you stop fight, flight, freeze. Right. Right. Your job is to keep them out of survival mode and get them in a relaxed, comfortable environment. So time in the learner profile is key. All right. Can error be a sign that the students didn't learn anything?
No.
Oh, absolutely. Error could definitely be signs that and don't look at it from a student perspective. Look at it as critiquing yourself as the teacher. You know what? They didn't really get anything out of my lecture. Therefore, my lecture, or my hopefully you're not lecturing. That control, they didn't get anything out of my context of modeling and my control practice. That means I need to do what? I need to go back to the drawing board and and approach this a different way. You know, don't look at it from the perspective that they didn't learn. Look at it as from the perspective that your instructional technique wasn't effective. Make sense?
Right.
So yes, error can be a sign that the students didn't learn anything, and it could be a sign that learning is taking place. Okay, in that they're making errors. You as the teacher notice the errors they're making and help support them, help guide them. The more continuous guided practice. Also, keeping in mind the difference between an error versus a mistake. If they made them, you got to give them a chance to correct their own mistake, and not say, "Oh no, no, you're wrong, not right." Slow down a bit. Student makes a mistake, especially if you believe the student knows it, and then help guide them towards. Are you sure about that? What you think about? I'm gonna give you 10 more seconds to think about what you just said. You said what? Oh, yeah, that's right, that's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. Oh, okay. That's a better thing because now they're able, and then you got to make sure is that you're not those smart kids. They're gonna want to jump in. No, 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 no. Give them a chance. Give them a chance, guys. Guys, give them a chance. All right, come on now. Let me think about what you said now. What? They is? They is? Yeah, teacher, they is really? Oh no, 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 teacher, they are. There you go, there you go, there you go. All right, instead of you just automatically. Now, eventually, remember what I said earlier. When you're teaching, right? So you're going to give them the answer, but you're also going to give them a chance to correct themselves. Okay. And again, this goes back to cultures of thinking with Ron Richart and the forces that you need to make sure that you're taking advantage of that instructional time in meaningful and efficient ways. So yes, both of those statements are true. Error is a sign that students didn't learn anything, and that teachers should that the teacher, the teacher, the instructor, the educator in the class needs to do some adjustment, right? And it's definitely a sign that learning is taking errors are a sign that learning is taking place because they're making errors. They're practicing. We expect them to make errors, right?
Yeah.
If they're not making any errors and getting everything right, either you are a super teacher or they tricked you because they already took the course before.
Yeah.
Right? Something's going on. What? What is it? Do you go last weekend? So an English teacher looks at this and goes, "What the heck is this?" Right? No, this is not right. You gotta go back. We gotta fix all this, right? So an English teacher looks at this statement and says, "There's a lot wrong with this thing," or "There's something wrong with this," because it's really not a lot wrong with it. But this is not right in grammar. Who taught you grammar? This is not what I taught you, right? That's what the English teacher does. The language arts educator says, "Wow, good job." The language arts educator says, "Wow, good job," especially for the non-native English. We're talking about somebody learning English. Good job. I'm going to show you something to make it better, but good job. Why good job? Because basically, out of these things, that person did more right than they did wrong. They did more right than they did wrong. Right? So I'm not really focusing on what they did incorrectly. I'm praising what they did right. They're number one, they capitalize the beginning of the sentence. The capitalization is correct. That's not even on it as a correct form. Right? That's not what they use the correct punctuation mark. All right? That's not even on there too. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 9, 10. It's 10 things instead of 8 things that's listed here. That's the first thing I see. The next thing is the word order is correct. All right? The word order is right. Because word order in English is, in word order, when you ask a question, you have an inversion, right? That could be difficult for a non-native speaker. So that's good. They know weekend.
Mm-hmm.
They know they have a basic understanding of vocabulary, especially this do invention.
Mm-hmm.
That subject verb agreement is correct. All right. Subject verb agreement is right. The inversion is right. The head on adjective noun is right. Last weekend. The adverbial placement is right. All right. The only thing is wrong is what?
You know.
The verb.
Right. The do verb, right. The past, they got the right verb, they just had the wrong tense of the verb. Right? It should be, what did you do last night? What did, oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Not, it should be where. It should be where.
What?
It should be where. Where, right? So it's the wrong WH word.
Mm.
And then the past tense is wrong. That's the only two things wrong with this. It should be where did you go last weekend? So 10 things right, 2 things wrong, but a lot of teachers will go ballistic on a student. What is wrong with you? I told you that. You got to work on your English. No, this is right. X, red mark, try again. Right? Or even if the teacher is not mean about it. Okay, well, you tried, but this should be where you used the wrong WH word, and that's the wrong past tense. All right, I know you could do better next time. Instead of doing that, say, "Wow, amazing! You did all these things correctly." Man, everybody give him a round of applause. Give him a round of applause. I do that all the time. They love that. Give him a round of applause. He did. Look, man, you got you knew that there was supposed to be a WH word. You got the do invention right. You got your vocabulary right. The word order is right. Man, you got all these things right, man. You learning English. Who's teaching English? Me? See, I'm a good teacher. Right? Now, there's only 2 things we need to do. Man, you're going to sound like a native speaker. There's only 2. You just got next time think about, you got to use when you talk about location, so we use where for location, right? Because you're asking them, where they were at, that's location. And then because it was last weekend, we need the what tense? We need the past tense. So do is not the past tense, we need did. But other than that, man, you did a good job. Now, which one do you think that the learner is going to receive? He's going to receive the fact that he did all these things right. And then all I need to do is tweak it a little bit. But if I just point out all the things he did wrong, he goes, man, I'm not going to learn this English thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's too hard. It's too hard. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Keep that in mind. Especially when we talk about language. But this applies, especially when we talk about language. It applies in other scenarios too, but especially with language. It's this idea, if you go look, it says observe, hypothesize, and experiment. When you're speaking, even in your own native tongue, and you're speaking, especially when you're speaking impromptu, when you didn't know you was going to speak, or you was kind of being put on the spot, you're not prepared. You got to understand this is something that occurs. It says this is what we want students to be doing. We want students to observe, hypothesize, and experiment. Allow students to experiment. That's the time. If you allow them to experiment, that means you need to have time. So that means when we're lesson planning, what you need to allocate time for them to what? Experiment. Allowing students to experiment implies that they are willing to accept errors as a part of the learning process, right? right? One of the biggest things that we see here is that students can't accept errors because here is a culture where everything has to be perfect. Full marks, teacher, full marks, right? Full marks. If they don't get full marks, it's okay. I'm gonna give you a 98. No, teacher, no, teacher, no, I did not. And it's like, but you did great. 98 is a great score. No, full marks. No, you don't have to be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. In fact, I'd rather you make some mistakes. I'd rather you practice here and make the mistakes here than go out there in a real authentic, a real world, chaotic world and make these mistakes. Make them here. It's okay. Right? It goes back to what we were saying about that A student. A student cannot accept errors, that they made an error. I'm an A student. I didn't make an error. It's something wrong, something that you did. Go and relook at it. Right? So you gotta give them time to experiment, and you gotta create that culture that making mistakes, making errors is perfectly okay in the classroom. Study of learner error and development of interlanguage, partially formed language produced during learning. All right, so interlanguage. You guys know what interlanguage is? You probably do it all. What other language do you speak? You speak English only?
No, we have other languages.
Huh?
We have other native languages.
All right.
That's
So you have your native language, right? Which is what? What is it? Ifat.
Ifat.
Ifat. All right. So you learned that first, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So at some point in time, when did you learn English? As a child?
Yeah.
We are
As
Okay.
we're growing up.
Yeah. So you probably didn't do it as much because you learned as a child. Children are easier to learn. They will process the language quicker, and so there's not going to be a lot of interlanguage. Interlanguage is when you, like for me, if I was trying to learn your language, right? I'm going to use a lot of interlanguage. Interlanguage is that moment, is that phenomenon of mixing my English with the language I'm trying to learn. We call that interlanguage. Okay, children, they can use interlanguage, but not. They're more likely to just dive right into the new language because their brains are way more open to accepting the new language as it is. So that's why you hear children. That's why you hear people who are non-native speakers but learn the language, learned the second or third or fourth language as a young child. They sound native, and technically they are native in many ways because they learned the language purely, especially if they learned it from like watching television,
Yeah.
right? They're native. They just learned it in another country.
Because I have a kid that just learned it from the television. Then the mom, like speaking English, but the mom, she don't understand anything.
Right. Because basically learning from natives, learning it the natural way that you learn a language. Like you learn from television, you're learning the natural way that you learned your native language and I learned my native language by hearing it and understanding the context, looking at the context, associating and letting the brain do what it does because of who? Not because of who. Who noticed that theory? Noam Chomsky, right? Universal grammar theory, right? That we naturally learn languages. The problem is as we get older and we get more dug in and entrenched in our native language, we see things through our native language, right? So then certain things won't, it's difficult to grab certain concepts because we begin to see everything through our native language. Whereas when you learn as a child, you're still learning your native language in theory, right? You're still learning your native language. So accepting other languages as they are, because you're not seeing that second language through your native language, because you're still learning your native language. You see? But once you're fully entrenched in your native language, it becomes difficult to accept the second language. So you get what we call interlanguage as you're learning the second, third, or fourth language. when you're mixing the two languages together. And that is what may be happening here. Okay? Because maybe in the native language, what or the whatever word that represents what is how you would say it. You see what I'm saying? So interlanguage suggests that students may be judging several intermediate forms at any one time. That's what I just said. As they try to get a fix on what is correct, right? Because they're seeing the language through their native language or other languages that they know, as well as the learner's awareness of the errors ranges from. So when you are speaking in that second language, even when you're speaking in your native tongue and it's an impromptu kind of situation where you didn't know you was going to be speaking, especially somebody's questioning you, or it's kind of a semi-formal situation that you didn't know you was going to be doing and you didn't get a chance to prepare for, you begin to do this. You begin to say, like maybe in a job interview or somebody puts you on the spot, or the principal says, "Hey, come in front and talk to these parents." You're like, talk about what? Come up here and say a couple words. I didn't know I was going to say anything, right? Then, so you begin to speak, and because you didn't necessarily prepare, we all go through this, native tongue or not native tongue language, right? I am aware of the error after I said it. I'm aware of the error. Oops, right? So maybe a subject verb agreement was wrong. Maybe maybe you used the wrong vocabulary word or the word out of context, right? Or then I'm aware of the error as I said. So as I saying it, I know I'm about to make the error, and I will correct myself right away. Right? They are. Right? So I correct myself right away. And then I'm able to correct the error before I say it. So before I said they are, right? Right? So this is kind of the process that we want learners to go through, that when they're learning in general. So can you take this outside of language? Yes, language acquisition, absolutely. Math, science, especially math. Okay, because as we said before, history and everything else is a more philosophical, right? But even we still do that, right? And I've done it several times with you guys over the last couple of days, where I'll say something, and I say, no, not really that, right? No, don't look at it from that perspective, right? Consider this. Or in the case of yesterday, where I thought about what you said, because I had said initially when you said about when in your home country in Nigeria, you was trained to teach as if the students don't know anything, right? And I said something to the fact that's not right, right? And then a couple hours later, I thought about it, right? And I said, well, even though my position is still that it's not right, let me clarify. From an instructor's point of view, that is how instructors act. It's not how teachers act. So that is an example of observe, hypothesize, experiment. And that one, it took me a couple hours to process it through. Right? I made another mistake the other day that it took me a couple hours to process through. A couple after you guys left, I said that Dr. Bloom's name was Orlando Bloom. That's an actor. Orlando Bloom is an actor. From I think Pirates of the Caribbean. Right? His name is Ibrahim Bloom. Right? Ibrahim Bloom. I thought, but see, I was able to catch it. It was like 2 hours later, right? So, but I was able to catch it nevertheless, right? And we all do this. This is why you have different editions of books, and we have to make redactions, but it's better that I catch it than you go back and 2 days later or a week later and say, you said that guy's name was Orlando Bloom. His name is Ibrahim Bloom. Oh, yeah. So it's better that I say, oh no, you know what, guys? I just thought about something I said, uh, his name is not Orlando Bloom. His name is Ibrahim. So we make these errors and mistakes in many different contexts, not just in language. All right, in many different contexts, and it's great when we're able to correct ourselves. Okay, so as an educator, we want to do what? We want to give time for students to what? Make their own corrections. Now, mind you, we only might have a 40-minute block of instruction. So, we can't give every student 5 minutes, right? But we keep that in mind that we need to give students a couple seconds or give students time to make corrections or build those that observe hypothesis experiment concept into our entire unit. And this is how and so as you plan your units, that's how your units get better and better. Your yearly plans get better and better because as you learn new things, you begin to implement new best practices into your planning. So now you might not have known that year 1, year 2, but year 3 you learn. You know what? I need to give students more time. So as I build my unit plans, as I build my yearly plan, my unit plans, my daily lesson plans, I put in time for reflection. Right? I put in time. I set aside enough time in my planning where students are able to observe, hypothesize, experiment. Okay, and this is how we become better as educators, as we learn as we learn more and more new things. That's why I said, you don't have to be the perfect educator. You just need to know some basic things. You need to know how to set context, and you need to know that you don't know. You need to know that you don't know, and that you'll always be moving to becoming better. Okay. Um, let's look at task 3. Let's look at some examples of other errors so you can see. Number 1, I talked to her yesterday. All right, that's not right, right? Yeah. I talked to her yesterday. I spoke to her yesterday. All right, but again, did more things right than they did wrong. Okay, he borrowed her the book. He borrowed her the book. Right?
He borrowed. I think that was correct.
He borrowed her the book.
It depends on the time.
That's not correct. It's the wrong word, yeah.
The word.
The wrong verb. He loaned her the book.
Or lent.
Mm-hmm. Or lent. Lent. The book, right? Right. So if you're doing, I borrowed the book. Okay. So if I'm the receiver, I borrowed it. If I'm the giver, I lent it. Right. Make sense? So but again, we praise the possibilities. We praise the effort and what they did right. Okay. All right. Look at task 5. It says, "What do you think the student is trying to say here? Notice that there are a number of possibilities. What would provide the clue to which form is correct in this case? They went there since yesterday." What are they trying to say here? They went there since yesterday. You know what they're trying to say?
They went somewhere. And
what's the correct way to say that? They went there since yesterday.
I think they went there yesterday.
They have been there since yesterday. They have been there since yesterday. Okay. That's what they're trying to say. All right. But I think that's what they're trying to say. There's other possibilities there. They went there since yesterday. I think they're trying to say, and I'm sure they're trying to say, they have been there since yesterday. Right. Okay. Okay. Again, the key here is to look at this from the aspect of what they did, what they do know, what they did get right, praise that, and then point out how they can improve their speech or their writing. All right. Um, let's look at order of acquisition. All right. Turn to page 3. Order acquisition. When we're acquiring a language, what happens is, especially as children, when we even our native language, but even when we acquire a language, we tend to focus on single units first. What? What? What your name? Right? Single units.
Say it again.
What? Cookie? What? We focus on single units, single words, single chunks, single lexes. Lexes is chunks of words. Right? But it's a single idea concept. And then as we learn the language more, we go to the SVO, subject verb object, right? You have a cat? You cat black? You cat black? All right. You cat black? Third stage in acquisition is they're able to use the WH words. Where the cats are? Where are you going? Where are you going? Right. Stage 4, they begin to they can start to use the to be verbs, right? And then they can use inversions when it comes to questions. Is a cat? Is a cat? They are dog. They dogs? Is a cat? Is a cat? They are dogs. Are they dogs? Have you a cat? Stage 5, they can use auxiliary with what? So auxiliary words with what? What are you doing? What do you have? Right? Stage 6, they can begin to use can in the negative questions. Right? Can you go with me? Right? All right. No, he isn't. Isn't he? He's eating, isn't he? And then stage 7, they can put together full clauses. Do you know what it is? So understand, as a person is acquiring a language, they're going to go through about 7 stages of development. And each person is going to have their own time, set amount of time in which to, until they get to stage 7. And it's pretty cool to see with younger kids, because younger kids, they don't care, right? They don't care about trying their language and practicing. Whereas older people, what? They don't want it. They don't want you to see them go through this process. Make sense? Mm-hmm. They're embarrassed to go through stage 1. It's to go to stage or hear them people have people hear them go through stage 3 and stage 4. A kid don't care. A kid go cookie, me like this, me good, mm-hmm. Right? The kid doesn't care.
Me no like.
Me don't like. All right. All right. So input processing, output processing, scaffolding. While there are some consensus that paying attention to language form during the input stage may eventually assist the learner in acquiring and using the form, there is more debate about the usefulness of guided production or output processing. We know that learners require time to integrate new grammatical structures into their interlanguage systems, meaning what they already know versus what they're learning. However, their native language when it comes to a second language or first language. However, it is only that the transfer is delayed, but the learners often produce forms that bear no resemblance to what has been presented to them or practiced. So I think what's being said here, what David's saying here, is that, just give them time. Just give them time. Don't spend too much time beating them up on forms as they go through the stage. They're going to naturally go through the stage themselves.
Okay.
So don't don't it'll happen when it happens. That the tomato tree is going to grow when that tomato tree grows. All you need to do is give it sunlight and feed it water. Right? It's going to do its thing. You just need to do your thing. Right? You need to prune it. Right? Prune it. And do what you're supposed to do. Bridging the distance. There are many miles to be traveled between the input that the learner receives and what the learner produces. We cannot assume that with the mere presentation of the language information, whether implicitly or explicitly, learners will necessarily convert it to an output. That's what I just said. Just because you give them instruction, right? What Diane Lawson Freeman says, teaching does not cause learning. Students do not learn because you teach. So just because you have an objective to say by the end of this class, students will be able to, doesn't mean that's going to happen.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That's what we call our wishful thinking, right? And we keep on working those objectives and doing what we're supposed to do, allowing them practice until one day. And sometimes, in some cases, it never magically happens. I'm pretty sure I had teachers when I was coming up said, Ray, that boy ain't gonna ever get right. You know what I mean? Yeah. He ain't gonna have to be a PhD. Well, Ray's a PhD, right? That fruit doesn't. The one thing about being an educator, I think a lot of people don't like is that you don't necessarily see you don't reap the benefit of your hard work. You don't get to see the harvest.
So why is it always like that?
It's just like that. We try to produce it with assessments and tests. Oh, they did well on the test, but a test is not really an indicator of what a person knows or learned.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and that's kind of the sucky thing about what we do, and that's why it's cool. Maybe you see somebody 20 years later, and they end up being a doctor or somebody, a respectable person. You can say, you know what, I had something to do with that. Especially when they walked up to you and say, you know what, I remember you. It's because of you. You go, wow, I didn't know that. That's kind of cool. But how many of us run into students 20 years later? It doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why more of a reason why we have to make sure that we're following best practices, because we are, unlike the instructor, where if I teach you how to ride a bike,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can say, Dr. Ray taught me how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
Before I met him, I didn't know how to ride a bike.
Mm-hmm.
After 3 days, 1 day, whatever, 2 hours with him, I was able to ride a bike. That's instruction.
Okay.
Right? I'm an instructor. We don't get that as educators. We don't get that, because what we do as educators is way more complicated. It's way more complex. Okay. Corrections. So with that in mind, our job is to correct. And some of the things that we have to think about is what's an acceptable, on page 5 now. What's an acceptable correction and what's not acceptable? So guidelines for correction. Given that the teacher may or may not know what error has been made, what the student is trying to say, or what would be the best way to correct the error, perhaps the first rule of correction must be patience. That's what I said earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Time. Be patient. Inappropriate error correction often leads to learner shutdown. If you go and jump in automatically and didn't give them a chance to correct themselves, then they shut down. You're not providing what we call agency. I want you to write that in your book, agency. So an instructor doesn't really have to worry about agency.
Why?
Because he's only with them a short period of time. He just needs to get them to learn the skill. I'm going to teach you how to ride a bike. I'm going to teach you how to drive, how to parallel park, or whatever the case may be, right? He's just worried about whether they can produce the skill, because what we do is more than skill production. We do a lot more than that. We have to worry about agency, and what agency is it's a level of confidence where um, the learner feels empowered to self-correct, to reflect, to do their homework, to take the next step. Agency is about independence, right? And not being reliant on the teacher. So if you always jumping in, correcting, and not giving them a chance, you're taking the agency away from them. Okay? So patience is key. That's what I started this conversation by saying that. Time. That dead air is okay. Inappropriate air often leads to learner shutdown. For example, stop speaking or participating in the class. We will assume this is not what the teacher intends, while letting error continue for long periods of time may lead to bad habits. So we can't, so if we don't correct their errors, then they'll have bad habits, and then we really didn't do our job, right? It is probably advisable to delay correction until the following criteria can be followed. 1, determine whether the error should be corrected. Acceptable. This means when the correction is not seen as a threat. So the first thing is the correction cannot be seen as a threat. It's not as an attack. So when we're teaching, we don't correct, we don't attack and correct. Nobody accepts that. Okay? What do you think? Remember, we started this talking about the brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that RES is going to do? Huh?
RS.
That reticular activating system in the brain?
It's.
What do you think it's going to do? If you start, no, it's where? Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, guys. You guys in university, man. What's going on, man? Who's your teacher? Yeah, you guys don't really care about this stuff, man. I mean, come on, brother. I mean, what do you do with? Come on, man. Who taught you English, man? You don't really care. You don't need to be here. You talking about you want to be medical doctors? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the brain's going to do? Shut down. RES. The RES is going to say, hey, man, don't be talking about my friend like that. You know what? Forget everything he's saying. Fight, flight, freeze. Okay. So the correction cannot be a threat. And the learner is open and ready to adopt that correction. So make sure, that's why, again, I say, I know I sound like a broken record, the first 4 weeks of school should not be instruction. You're setting the tone that this is a safe place to do what? Make errors. That nobody's going to make fun of you. That nobody's going to threaten you. This is a place where you can make mistakes, that where you can make errors, because this is a safe place. And you can't do that by just automatically jumping in and giving and starting to teach the lesson right from day one. They have to have faith, trust in you. They have to know that you are their ally. You don't have to be their friend, but you definitely need to be their ally. Somebody that they can depend on. Okay? Because later on, if you don't set that environment, if you don't set that routine, if that's not a part of your culture of thinking, then when you go to make a correction, they see it as an insult. Next thing you know, the parents are coming up complaining, oh, you don't like my kid. My kid's scared of you. My kid's having nightmares. Oh, they come up with, I heard all types of stuff. My kids are having nightmares because of you. They don't want to go to sleep. Right? You're the evil monster. Right? They don't like you. We want to switch you. Right? Maybe because, not saying that you're wrong, but you have to set that environment in the class where it is known this is a safe place. It's like when you go to a library. Do you yell in a library? Mm-hmm. No, a library is what we know. A library is a place where everyone must be quiet because that's the expectation, right? We know that well. Same thing when people go to in the mashup. You go, you take your shoes off. There's a routine, right? You go to church. There's a routine when you go into the church. You go to if you're Catholic, there's another routine, right? Right? You go into your mama's house. There's a routine. Take your shoes off. You're gonna do these things. You're gonna before you put the dirty dish in the sink. You're gonna put the food in the trash, and you're gonna wipe it off, and then you're gonna put it in the sink, right? Routines, expectations. So as educators, we have to have the same routines and expectations, and that routine it needs to be set at the beginning of the year to say, hey, look, this is a safe place. You're gonna make mistakes. There's some rules because we are a community, and so we got to have some rules. So a couple rules that we have. We're gonna respect one another, right? We're not gonna put our hands on one another, right? Because we're all here to learn, and I want you safe here. I want you comfortable and safe. That's why for me, I don't care. Students, we ask me about sleeping in the class. Let them sleep in the class. Should they eat in the class? Let them eat in the class.
Why you're teaching?
Let them eat in the class. Let them drink. Why? The only thing is you got to teach them to what? Clean up after themselves. You're not going to eat and leave the trash all over the place. You're not going to do that because that's not being a good community member. But why shouldn't they eat in class? The reason why we don't let students eat in class because we don't want to pick up their trash.
No, I think is a part of distraction because
Yeah.
when this kid is eating, the other one will be telling you, "Teacher, this one is eating."
No.
I want
So
to
if you let everybody eat, then you don't have that problem.
So I have to let all of them to eat.
Don't get me wrong. Listen to me. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. If the school rule is that nobody eats in class,
Yeah.
you follow the school rule because it goes back to the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. But again, I'm talking about from a pedagogical sense. From a pedagogical sense, because a lot of that don't eat in class. That's a part of isomorphism, right? When I was in school, my teacher didn't let me eat in class, so y'all not going to eat in class. Well, where's the pedagogical benefit of not eating in class? There's no pedagogical benefit of not eating in class. You don't want the student to eat in class because number one, you don't want to pick up after their trash, right? That's number one, right? Right? You find it to be a disruption, right? You don't want to hear the principal's mouth, right? Right? This is the reason, and you don't like it. But if we go to research like chewing gum, you want the student to chew gum in class because they're building dendrites in their brain when they're chewing. Every time your mouth moves, you're building dendrites, learning receptors. So why wouldn't we want the students to eat in class? Why wouldn't you want the students to feel comfortable? If the students are hungry, why can't they go and grab a sandwich? Why can't they go and grab a healthy snack and eat? Why? Tell me why. Now maybe we don't allow them to eat Snickers bars and candy bars because that's promoting unhealthy eating. But why can't they get something to eat while they're in class? What kind of dictatorship is this where the students can't eat in class? Somebody explain that to me. The reason why, because you can't manage it. You don't want to manage it. But trust me, if you managed it well, you're going to have a better learning environment. Because you're giving people agency. And yes, you have to remind the younger kids to clean up after themselves, but that's a part of what we do too. It's about developing them so they can solve problems. Right? Clean up after. Hey, put it in the lesson plan. That becomes a part of your routine. You take 5 minutes before the end of the lesson. All right, everyone. Lesson's over. Now you know what the routine is, and you don't have to say it. Or you ring the bell, or whatever the routine is, and everybody looks around. They police their area. They look at their desk, any trash, and they go and they follow in the single file line. They put their stuff in the trash. If you have that as a routine, eating in class is not a big deal. But see, the problem is people don't know how to inspect what they expect. So they say, so isomorphic thinking happens. Don't let them eat in class. It's the dumbest thing in the world to tell somebody they can't eat in class. Stupid. There's no pedagogical benefit from telling somebody they can't eat in class. And again, with that being said, am I going to let kindergartners eat in class? No. Why? Because they're messy, right? But why can't a fourth grader eat in the class? They're big enough. You just make sure they clean up after themselves, and you set that routine, and you get more. You create agency. You create agency when you do that. You're helping them become self-determined. You're helping them become self-regulative. You're helping them to become self-efficient. You're helping them to move towards adulthood and responsibility and accountability. So why wouldn't you do that? And that's why you're not an instructor. So instructors say, don't eat because when we're doing this skill, or you're gonna mess my machine up, or you know what I mean? Because it's instruction. But in class, we're in this artificial learning lab. Why can't I eat in class? Yeah, maybe they don't eat in a computer lab because you don't want them spilling stuff on the computers. But in a classroom, why can't they eat? Why can't they have a snack? Right? So make sure that the correction is not a threat. That you have a climate and culture in your class that correction is acceptable. Okay. All right. That the correction is done in a controlled practice scenario where you're going through the teacher student. That's within the framework, so they're willing to accept it because they know the routine, right? And this is the framework of the transaction instead of being individually attacked. This is another reason why, you praise what they did correct, so they don't feel like they're being attacked. That the correction is understandable. All right. So make sure that they're able to understand it well. So that means you need to be able to explain it well. I see people do this a lot, they'll tell somebody that they're wrong, but they're not able to explain why they're wrong. So if you're not able to explain why it's wrong, leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Address it another day where you thought about it a little bit more carefully, and you can give that person a well-defined position on why they're wrong, or explanation on why they're wrong. Make sense? Yeah. So don't just tell a student that they're wrong and not be able to explain why they're wrong.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You made a mention of classroom is a place where you give the student the answers.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask, if I have 10 sums to solve on the board,
Mm-hmm.
should I solve the whole sum while the student follow after me? Like I told you, some of them are just there for you to write and they copy. Why some will try to do something and say, teacher, wait, let me do, and then come and check. So am I to solve like 3 or 4 and allow them to do the rest, or I continue doing all?
So it depends on where you are. If you're in that crawl phase where they don't know a lot, this is a new concept. Yeah, you're gonna solve 2 or 3 of them. You're gonna give them a couple of examples, and then you're gonna allow them to practice, control practice, right? And do it the student way. So let's do this. So you're teaching them how to add fractions with different denominators. Right? So they're adding 1/2 plus 1/3. So, okay, context and modeling. Context would be, have you ever tried to combine something that didn't fit together? You ever try to do a puzzle and the puzzle don't fit, the pieces don't fit? right? Or two things didn't fit well, right? How do you combine two things that don't fit well? Well, in fractions, we can do that. If you learn fractions, you know how to combine two things that don't fit well. You know, your mother ever buy you a pair of pants or a shirt or something, and it didn't really fit you well? Then you had to go and what? Try to alter it, change it, take it to the tailor. The tailor has to do some math to help you. He has to take your measurements. Then he has to do some adding or subtraction to get it to make it fit well for you. So let me show you how he does that. Okay, that's what's setting the context. All right. So let's say you have a half of the piece of pants. You need to combine it with a third. Well, we learned before because you would have already told them. They would have already learned how to add this. All right. Let's make it better. They would have already learned how to add this. Because you already taught them how to add when the denominator is the same, right? Because you're not going to teach them this before you teach them that, right? So they already had that concept, all right? So, and you guys already know how to add when the denominator is the same. So when the denominator is different, what we need to do is we need to find something called the least common denominator between the two denominators. And all that means, and I would have done, before I would have already taught them least common denominator. Right? In theory, they would have already, that would have been a separate lesson, least common denominators. Right? So you guys remember from the lesson yesterday or last week about least common denominator, how to find it, right? So anybody can, I'm modeling, so I'm not asking questions now. So the least common denominator between 3 and 2 is 6. Right? So if we look 3 and 2, we're going to get 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3, you're going to get, where it comes from. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Let's just stop right there and see if we find anything. 2, 4, 6. Oh, boom. So that's our least common factor, right? Mm-hmm. So 3 times 2 is 6. And I bring that up. Y'all guys remember that from before, right? Oh, no, maybe I didn't teach them that. So now we need to get 6. We're going to make 6 as the denominator for both of these numbers because that's the least common factor. 3 times, what makes 6? So I'm going to put 6 here. What makes 6 times, what of 3 makes 6? 2. So I'm going to put this for the numerator. Whatever I do at the bottom, I do at the top. 1 times 2 is 2. All right, I'm going to put my 6 here. What times 2 makes 6? 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Whatever I do at the bottom, I do at the top. 3 times 6, that's 3. And then now, because my denominators are the same, I can now add them. And my answer is 5, 6. Yeah. Right? All right. Let's do that one more time. So I'll do another example. Okay. All right. I'm going to do it one more time. Mm-hmm. All right. Then it's, okay. So that was my teacher, right? Yeah. So technically I should do it 5 times. 5 times. But math, let's say it's 3. Because it depends on how much time we have in class, right? Because we might not have time. Because I need to get the practice done. Yeah. So it depends on how much time I have. If I can get 5 is a good number, but 3 is good too. So then I did teacher student, right? So then I bring, come on up. Let's do a smaller number. One 4 and 3 8. All right. So now it's teacher student. So now this is how we look for math. All right. So can you tell me what is going to be the least common factor? Come on up.
And this.
What's the least common factor between first? Well, tell me what the first thing you need to do.
We have to look for the least common factor.
Okay, so the least common. So we take out 4, then we take out 8, and 4 times 2 is 8, and then that's 12, and then that's 16, right? Let's stop right there. Yeah. And then that's going to be 8, and then that's going to be 16. Oh, 16, so it's going to be 16, right? So what do I do next? What should I do next?
You multiply by
Yeah, so
2.
so put your 16. Let's go ahead and put out 16 because we know it's gonna be 16, right? All right. So always what I like to do, it's up to you, but I like to start from the bottom up. All right. But if you want to start from the top, that's fine too. It's still gonna work.
16 here is 2.
Mm-hmm. So what times
You
8?
do 4 here.
All right.
You do 4. But
No. From this one, only for
Yeah.
this one. So that's gonna be 2, and that's gonna
so
make it what?
here will be 6.
Okay. So then I ask myself, what times 4 makes 16?
That's 4
Okay.
times 4.
All right.
So we have 4 here.
All right. Is now all we have to do is what?
We add
All right, we add what? And that's gonna be what?
16.
Uh huh.
4 plus 6.
Is what?
10, 16.
All right. All right. So now that's my teacher student. Now you see what happened in math. I get a chance to do in front of the class, have an interaction with her. Right?
Yeah.
All right. And I can do teacher student again with another student. Right?
Yeah.
I decide how many students I want to do teacher student with. And then I let the student come up, right? And I'll say, now it's student teacher. So come on up.
And teachers.
Now it's student teacher. So come up. Come on up. Now, depending on the level of your students, you can use the same question that you modeled with, or you can use different questions.
Okay.
Depends on your students. So if they're a little bit, if you find that they're not getting the concept, use the same question that you model with, because they can use that as a point of reference. Okay. All right. So let's go 1/5 and 1/2. We're gonna add those two. All right. So, all right, teacher, tell me what I have to walk me through it. The same way I walked her through it. What's the first thing I have to do?
We look for the.
Oh no, you tell me what I have to do. I'm sorry.
We will look for the common factors.
All right, so I have to find a common factor, right?
Yeah.
All right, so that's gonna be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'll stop right there, and that's gonna be 10. Oh, okay. So teacher, it's gonna be 10. 10 is the least factor, the least common factor. So what do I do now?
This one, teacher, I don't understand. I don't understand.
So so let's say you're the teacher. What do I do now?
So from the down, you write 10, 10.
All right, 10, 10. All right, and
Yeah.
then what I do now? Then tell me.
So-
Then ask me. So.
2 times 5,
Uh-huh.
and then you bring 5 up here,
Uh-huh.
and then this is 5, 5 times 2,
Okay.
and then you bring 2 here,
Okay.
and then,
All right. So what do I do now?
so you add this to this,
Mm-hmm. And what about this
and then
number?
you bring this down.
All right. So you see now she's the teacher, right? So that's my student teacher, and then I will bring 2 students up to the board and let them explain it to one another.
Yep.
That's your control practice.
But the timing is always.
Yeah, that's your control practice.
I know, but the timing, like, for language, you have almost 1 hour. But
What do you have? You don't have an hour for math?
No, she has like 45.
Okay, you gotta work it out. Whatever time you're given, you gotta work it out. If the only thing you get to do in that is control practice, that's fine. That's fine. I don't understand why you get less time for math, but if that's the only thing that you do is control practice, they would have learned something in that 40 minutes. Because now, think about it. You did it 3 times with them. Teacher, student, there's another 1 or 2 times. So that's 3, 5, student, teacher, 6, 7, student, 8, 9. 9 times you got to see the problem being done from different perspectives. That's iteration. That's a different form of iteration, right? All right, and then if you have time, then they can go and they can work in a group. Okay, they can work in a group. Don't worry about them working individually yet, not right now, because that's not the point. You want them to build agency, confidence.
Because sometimes they ask us to make videos of each child, and to have a video of each child, you have to call them.
I mean, this is the nonsense. So now I got to be a videographer
I
too.
want to see my child doing it on the board.
That's the craziness. That's the craziness, and that's when Camaro developer kicks in and says, "Look, I don't have time to do that. I have time for them to understand the concept. All right, I'm not a videographer. You're not paying for me to do videography. When I gotta take the time and do a video of each student, that's taking away instructional time. It's taking away instructional time because you want to make sure you retain. Like you got to hire. Like some schools actually hire a videographer, right? So if I'm doing this student the way I'm doing it, then the videographer can come and see me do teacher, and trust me, the parents are going to appreciate that way more than they see in the student doing it in the book, individually getting it wrong, because those same parents are still, regardless of the number of videos you're taking, are still hiring a tutor, spending additional money for a tutor, right? So it's much more. If anything, you're going to videotape me doing teacher, student, teacher, and the parent go, "Oh, I like that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty different." But see, the isomorphic thinking, that's isomorphism, because everybody else thinks they had to take a video. Because all the schools take a video. Why? Why are they taking this video? Not for any other pedagogical reason other than retaining students, making parents happy, so they come back next school year. Yeah. And so so when schools do that, and I'm not saying don't take the video because you got to get a paycheck. Okay, but what I am understand is when they tell you, understand that that's nonsense, and they're a joke, and you can't take anything that they say seriously. Just understand that. You just can't take it seriously, and that's one of those things where you just go, I am where I am. This is a joke, right? And then the other thing too. So when we correct, the correction must be what? Acceptable. It must be understandable, and it must be doable. All right. Doable refers to that the student can actually go out and follow whatever the instruction is. Sorry. So it refers to a situation when the learner knows the correct form but is unable to produce it. This can be happening for two possible reasons. The correct form is known, but not part of the student's unconscious production response system when asked in on-the-spot classroom situation. All right, so when they asked to do it, they can't produce it. So bottom line is, whether it's something dealing with language arts or something dealing with math or whatever it is, they have to be able, you got to give them time to be able to produce. It has to be producible. Okay? So something like this can be producible. The correct form is known, but the learner is unable to produce the correct form because of unpracticed neuromotor skills. For example, rolling the R's in Spanish or the initial NG sounds in Thai. So they need to be able to do it. That's why we take them through the basic learning model. The teacher's paradigm. And the basic learning model, by the way. That's why we do teacher-student, teacher-teacher, teacher-student, student-teacher, student-student. Why? It gives them chance to what? Practice and see other people doing it. They see other people doing it. They're seeing other people practice. Okay? So this works whether it's math, science, English, math, philosophy, whatever it is. You just have to tweak it so it works for the subject matter. But the key is getting them to practice in using iteration. Right? The key is that you set the context. The key is that you model it. Right? All right. And so let's talk about modeling, because I think I failed to say this yesterday. In modeling, you got to make sure you're modeling appropriately. You have to be concise in your explanation. So you have to make sure that you are explaining it well, so your students will be able to understand what you're trying to communicate. You have to do it Try to be concise. Concise. Be cogent. Make sure that the context is a situation that they do understand. Okay? Make sure that context is a situation that they understand. Make sure that you are explaining it in the most simplest way possible. You're breaking it down into small chunks. The same thing we did here. All right? We got to find the LCD. Then we did this. Then we did that. Then what's next? And then I verify that by having the students come up and I walk them through it or they walk me through it. Okay? So all corrections must be appropriate, must be understandable, and must be doable. So I can understand it and can't do it. Especially me, when I try to learn a language, I just can't pronounce certain sounds. I have to practice that sound. So when you notice that, again, you learn to build that into your planning. Have students practice the sounds. I need to be able to model the sounds. Ways and means. The way a teacher corrects or doesn't correct depends on considerations of the above questions. Since in the classroom there's seldom time for detailed analysis, it often comes down to the question of what is the aim of the activity. As a rule, activities may be aimed at fluency, for example, getting students to speak or try out language, or accuracy, producing correct models of language. Also, in general, lower level learners need more encouragement for fluency or less focus on accuracy. How to correct an error starts with looking at the possible sources of the correction or feedback. All right. What did I say initially? I said the first thing that we want them to really begin to self-correct. This is the number one thing that we want, to build into them a mindset of self-correction. Self-correction is the most preferable since it strengthens the learner's what? Confidence. Learner confidence is key. All right. The reason, remember we talked about Mr. Jones and he lets them do whatever they want in class and he tells them how great they are and right, but he doesn't really teach them much or anything. And they love him. Why do they love him? Because he's doing one thing right. He's building their confidence. He's building their agency. He's telling them, you guys are so cool. He's just not giving them any instruction. But he is building confidence. So maybe he shouldn't be a teacher. Maybe he should be a counselor or something else. But he is doing that right. You have to build confidence in the learners. Because there are going to be some learners where this is just horrifying. Horror. You understand me? They look at this and they see terror. You're going to have other students, you give them something to read, and it's horrifying. It's terrible. You have other students, they see chemicals, they see a chemistry that 2 of that and 1 of this and 3 of those. It's terrifying. So a big part of our job is confidence building. Confidence building. Again, the instructor who only has 2 hours with you to teach you something or 2 days to teach you something, right? He's not worried about confidence building as much. I'm not going to say he's never worried about it, but he doesn't have a lot of time to build confidence. He's going to show you. That doesn't mean he's not encouraging, but his main focus is not building your confidence because he only has a certain amount of time with you. I have 180 days with you or more. I'm going to be teaching you concepts that are very abstract, that are very subjective, right? It's not black and white with us. So because it's not black and white, it's very abstract, I have to build agency in you. I have to build confidence in you. I have to give you grit. I have to help make sure that you become self-efficient. Because if I don't do these things, it's all the things that we're going to do the school year. It's going to be a challenge. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So self-correction is where I want to be. Is where students go out and self-correct, because it does strengthen their confidence. The important thing is to give the students enough time. I mentioned time to self-correct. The teacher's very nature to be helpful may get in the way. That's why I said what? What did I say? Be quiet. That dead silence, because you can get in the way. Just be quiet. Look at them. And then give them time to process through. Oh, okay. Sometimes we want to be overly helpful, right? All right. The best teaching is just when we just let it not happen. We get dead silent, maybe a look, maybe a point. Remember when we did the? All right. So a lot of times, and I'm talking about myself now. A lot of times we talk too much as teachers. I'm talking about myself. We talk, a lot of times we just talk too much. We got to learn how to shut up. Okay. The teacher's very nature to be helpful may get in the way, jumping in to supply an answer before the student has a chance to respond. Encouraging self-correction might include pausing to allow for the response, providing supporting cues on the board with pictures. I said the answer is somewhere in the classroom, right? Recording students' response on paper or tape and asking them to look for the errors. Yeah, that works too. That's where the butcher block paper comes in or on the board, and then they can visually see as you are recording where they went wrong. No, teacher. No, I didn't say that. Man, yes, you did. I'm listening to you. I'm writing what you're saying. Oh, that's not what I meant. Oh, okay. Stay self-corrected. Indicate that there is an error, but wait to allow the student to correct it in the future. Are you sure about that? Think about that. Can you tell me tomorrow? Can you think about it and come back to me tomorrow or come back later in the class? You sure? All right. Self-correction is what we want. Next one, the next best thing is what? Peer correction. All right? Be careful with this one, because we always got that one student in the class that knows it all, wants to jump in all the time, right? So you got to give them a chance. Give them a chance. All right? Eliciting responses from the class to the board. Students brainstorming responses in groups. Brainstorming is a huge one. Get students to sit down and brainstorm, because a lot of times nobody knows. So, all right, I'm not going to give you the answer right now. We're going to take a moment. And sometimes this is not building your lesson, okay? This is what we call teachable moments. You don't really have time for it based on your lesson, but it's so important. You say, you know what? This is going to overrule what I wrote down in my lesson plan. All right, guys, I'm going to get in the group. A, B. All the A's in this group, all the B's in this group, all the C's in this group. I want you to take a sheet of paper and I want you to brainstorm this one problem or this issue. Again, you have to teach them how to brainstorm. Again, brainstorming must be a part of the routine in the class. But again, you have to teach them that. When do you teach them? The first couple of days, the first couple of weeks in school. That's why I say don't automatically go in there and teach. Teach them the routines. Create the culture. So they know when I say A, B, all A's right here, all B's right here. All right, guys, we're going to brainstorm this one out. All right, somebody get the paper, you're the recorder. You has a recorder. All right, everybody else are contributors, record all the main ideas. Or here's a word bubble, a word web, rather, or web. And then fill out the web. Everybody has a pen, and everybody fills out part of the web, and then discuss what they wrote in the web. You know what I mean by that? So they sit. So you give them, so they get a piece of paper. This is where it's good to have stuff like this as a teacher.
What
Oh, every time I go to IKEA, I buy this.
What is that?
It's just butcher block paper. So
Okay.
I have it with me. I pull it. So I have it. I always have a couple rolls in my class. Right? So when it's time to brainstorm something, I can roll it out, give each group, because this paper might not be big enough. So I roll it out, right? Give a lot of it, because I got a lot. I give a lot of it. They put it on the test, and then they put it on the desk, and then I can do something like, then they're gonna do something like this. So whatever the problem is, you know, I say the problem is, who do you think stole the apple? Who stole the apple? Right? And then they can put this on the desk, and then they group, they can start doing it on the web. And they can start contributing as one. Right? And then give them a chance to look at their web and process and talk to each other. And then you would hear some real cool, no, it couldn't have been Mary. No, it had to be Joe. And now they're processing themselves, who they think. Instead of sitting up there, who stole the apple? Who stole the apple? Anybody? Anybody want to raise hand? Anybody want to contribute? Mary, you want to contribute? Frank, you want to contribute? No, this is a more, let them process it. Because it's teaching them problem solving skills and brainstorming, brainstorming is a good problem solving skill. Okay. Writing incorrect sentences on a board and having students to correct them. Tape and record students' responses and then have the class watch it and listen to the responses and see where they did wrong. All right, and then after that, the teacher correction. All right, how can a teacher correct? We can rephrase the question, so we can ask it in a different way. We can ask clarifying questions that lead them to what we call leading questions that lead them to the answer. We can remodel it by doing teacher-teacher. So, we can ask the student to repeat the answer. All right. We can recast. Sometimes we can recast. Recast is saying the answer in a different way. All right. The other thing, which is less ideal, is that you can tell them which my teachers used to do when I was in school, go look it up in the dictionary, or go online and look it up. Go on Google, ask ChatGPT. There's benefits to that. I don't like that as much, but it could be a great way to get them to find the answer themselves. Okay. Errors and mistakes. An error is something that the student does not know or cannot use correct consistently. That's an error. A mistake is a language feature that the student can correct given a chance. So we talked about that in the beginning. So that's the difference between error and mistake. Okay. Error, when the answers are correct. Okay. Yeah, let's look at that. Into language. Recasting. So here's an example of recasting. Go to recasting. Yeah, page 9. This one this one's a good one. So Alex says, I ain't got no pen. Teacher says, I don't have a pen. So that's what we call recasting. I like that one a lot. I ain't got no pen. Don't you have a pen?
No.
No, I ain't got no pen. They don't have a pen, right? Alex, ain't nobody got no pen? Right? Doesn't anyone have a pen? That would be the recast for that. So I like recasting a lot because it's a friendly way of giving them the answer without giving them the answer. I ain't got a pen. I don't have a pen. I do that a lot, and people tend to accept recasting. instead of a correction. Or recasting is a form of correction, but it's subtle, right? And sometimes they don't like Alex here didn't really catch on what was going on, but you just recast, and maybe the other students catch on. But recasting is I do a lot of recasting. Clarifying questions. I was in a coffee shop. I was in coffee. Yeah, I was in coffee shop. Teacher, in the coffee shop. In the coffee shop. Yeah, and I was chatting with a friend. What was the name of the coffee shop? Right? A more positive example of recasting. Right? Clarifying questions. Right? So guidelines for correction, if and only if, is not what? Threatening. The learner understands the correction, and the correction is what? Doable. All right? So let's go there again. So when do we correct? When the correction is not threatening. And that's not a novel thing, by the way. I have seen students and teacher fight, especially in middle school and high school, because the student got offended, and they get into especially with language, or something dealing with social political things. The student might misinterpret it, what the teacher is saying, or the teacher just might be being nasty too, or trying to be sly, trying to throw a little jab in, and then students get offended. All right, so that threatening thing is real, especially for older and adults, right? Adults who, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? No, especially if they're so used to something, and something is part of that, they get very offended. All right. If you said to, let's say you're given a training, and you said to a group of teachers, we have to make sure that we have to make sure that parents are taking care, really understand what it means to be accountable. One of the things is, not driving with your baby on your lap. We need to tell parents, that, put them in a car seat. And some people will, what do you mean? I drive, there ain't nothing wrong with that. That's a culture thing. There ain't nothing wrong with this culture. What do you mean I can't drive with the baby on my lap? Right? And we'll get certain, even though you shouldn't drive with the baby, the baby need to be in a car seat. But people will get, right? So think about, my point is, think about the examples you use. Right? I would never do that unless I'm intentionally trying to piss off certain people. I won't do it in certain places. Especially if I know that's a part of kind of what they do as a as a cultural thing. But it's wrong. Like, again, driving with your baby. You've seen people drive with their baby, and it's like a newborn baby. It's like, dude, you shouldn't be doing that. So you get rear-ended, that baby's gonna fly right out of your hand, right? But if you said that, in a training scenario or teaching and learning, use that example, a lot of people will get offended. That's an example of a correction as a threat, and people will see as threatening. So be mindful of cultural threats. What do you mean by that? Like, if a man says something about a woman, right? What's the whole thing? You don't ask a woman her age, right? You don't mention weight to a woman, right? Because people will seriously get offended, and they'll throw your whole deal off, because that can be perceived as threatening. Okay, so just be careful and be mindful of that. And then that the learner understands the correction. Right, so you got to make sure you have the ability to present the correction in a way where it's understandable, it's concise. Remember, the more you talk, the less they understand. The more you talk, the less they understand. All right, and that's everyone. I don't care degree. The more you explain, the less they understand. All right. There's a lot of research on that. Bell Labs. The more you say, the more bandwidth it takes.
The
Right?
more you say,
The more. So they did a research. They did Bell Labs. You know, the people who created the telephone. They still exist.
they still.
They still exist. It's called Bell Labs, and they do a lot of research in communication. And one of the things they found out is the more you say, the more bandwidth it takes. Right? Meaning it takes a lot more to process that information, which makes the information more it takes a lot more effort to understand the information. It makes sense, right? The more you say, the harder it is to understand. The less you say, the easier it is to understand. So as teachers, we keep that in mind. We want to be able to explain things in a way where it doesn't require a lot of words. It doesn't require a lot of steps. If we can reduce the steps, right? If we can reduce the explanation, the words is better, is best. Even in writing, I remember in one class, I think in my master's degree class, was it my master's class? We had a teacher a professor who she would say, okay, read this, and I want you to summarize it in 10 words. And it might be like a 5-page thing, right? What she's trying to get us to do is be what? Concise. Explain it in 10 words. Why? There's an old saying, you don't understand something unless you're able to explain it to a first grader. So you don't understand it yourself. I don't care what topic it is. You don't understand it yourself unless you can explain it in a way a first grader could understand it. Whether it's physics, whether it be the Holy Trinity, whatever it is, what makes a cell phone work, whatever it is, unless you can explain it to a first grader and the first grader understands it, you don't understand it well. And what is that? That goes down to breaking things down to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
Because when we break things down to the lowest common denominator, it's easy to deal with. It's easy. 1/2. You got 5/10 right here. That's really what? 1/2. 1/2 is actually way more easier to deal with than 5/10. Right? So the smaller we can make something, it's easier to process. It's easy to manage. Going back, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. All right, I think that's all I have for today. That is noticing error. So today we covered two main things in teaching and learning: motivation, noticing error. You out of here, because I tell you what, it's basically 4 more classes that we had to. Well, actually, because we're doing 4 hours, there's 2 more classes: teaching English, teaching reading, teaching listening, teaching speaking, teaching reading, teaching writing. Then we have to have the grammar boot camp. Then we need to do a phonology class. Once we do that, that's 1, 2. We can finish up in 3 or 4 more days.
Okay. So come tomorrow. Come on Saturday.
Tomorrow I'm thinking tomorrow's Jimmy. Take a break because we did take a break tomorrow, but Saturday.
Okay.
And then we come on Saturday. We did teaching. We spend 2 days or 1 day teaching, teaching listening, teaching speaking. That's 1 day. Teaching reading, teaching writing. That's 2 days. Grammar boot camp. That'd be 1, 2. That'd be 3 days. Phonology, 4 days. That'll be finished. We'll be finished.
Okay.
All right.
I can't wait to finish.
You can't wait to finish.
Yeah.
You didn't think it was going to be this much, huh?
No, not. It's okay, but I can't wait to finish.
Thank you.
Thank
You're welcome.
sir.
Mhm.
You want to use the bathroom?
Yeah.
Okay.